Hi, I'm Sarah. It is January 14th. Let's write a story. What we'll need: a writing apparatus, voila, a book to inspire us, voila, and life experience, voila. So I was on a plane a few days ago, returning to Prague from Colorado, and something that I keep thinking about, I feel like is something worth exploring, is my seatmate. I was lucky enough to have a middle seat free, but the woman on the window side was this very, very petite Indian woman, and after like dinner service, I could feel her like feet scooting closer and closer to me, and at some point I looked over and she had laid all the way down on the two seats and was like buried beneath all these blankets and coats and scarves. And I remember feeling, or I guess just thinking at first, almost like mistaking her for my mother and feeling that same like tenderness or protectiveness towards her. Because I couldn't see her face, and so might as well be my mother. So yeah, I think there's something there. I feel like it's the little start of something. So we're gonna let that simmer. Yeah. Okay, so we have this little seed of an idea. But I also like to think about the literature that I was reading at the time. And this week it was The Fawn by Magda. Hold on, I want to get it right. Magda Szabo, a Hungarian writer. And oh boy, this is where I struggle to tell what books are about. Alright, I'm gonna just stick to my lane. And if you want to know what the book is about, just go to Goodreads. But I'm going to tell you the parts that I really liked and inspired me and that I kind of want to work into my little story. And the first is that the main character is always laughing at inappropriate moments or sad things. She has this like sense of like the ridiculousness of the world, and is always like holding herself back from this just like outrageous, rude, inappropriate laughter. So we'll add that up here. And as I say that, I think we have something to slot in because I can never sleep on planes, so I get really tired and I always end up watching movies that make me cry, or I'm just so tired and in like a kind of setting, I guess, that maybe any movie makes me cry. But on the plane, as I'm feeling this like sadness that is bringing forth tears, I'm also aware of the image of me when like all the lights have gone down on the plane, just weeping. And so what is that? Some sort of like duality maybe. Okay, so some more things I was thinking about from the last week. I was sitting along one of the moving walkways in the airport, and just as a guy was going by, he was on his phone, and I presume talking to maybe a child, and I heard the little voice just as it was going by going like, "I miss you," and then he was gone, just right in that moment behind me. And I was leaving my family, so it felt maybe even more meaningful to me. When I arrived in Prague, I saw that my boyfriend had got me a really nice vase, which didn't really feel like something that could like be a part of my life at any point. And I guess both of those moments, even as different as they were from one another, both had the same kind of like surrealness, like outside of myself and what I imagine as my life. I don't know if those will work into the story, but that's what I've been thinking about. And I think it's sometimes good just to like throw a bunch of stuff into the pot and see what comes out or doesn't. Okay, so back again to the fawn. I was thinking about a few more things that I liked. One is the theme or prevalence of female rage. I always like an angry woman in a story. I don't know if there's much anger in what I'm thinking about for my little story, but maybe. There's always, well, maybe I'm revealing too much about myself. There's always like an undercurrent of anger, and I think in the way we live our lives today. The second thing is I like the way that the story is framed. So talking about structure, the narrator is really just experiencing one morning, well, maybe day by the end, but she's revealing sort of what has led her to this crisis, a very confessional style. And I liked the stillness of it, the narrator being in one place, even though she's taking us all the way back to her childhood. So I was thinking where my story would take place. Do I want it in maybe the same way, one place? Whether that's the airplane seat or back in my apartment, even the bus or metro that I took to get back here from the airport. Not sure. Sometimes these stories seem to come almost like fully formed in my mind, and other times not. This feels a bit like a not time. But what we're gonna do is start with the first sentence, because you gotta start somewhere, and that's a good place to start. So let's start with the first sentence, which is I wrote something. I kind of like the sound of it. I don't know where it's going yet. But first sentence. I need to confess, but the apartment is empty. I like this little trail. I think we should follow it a little bit. All right, so I've written a little bit. I'll read it for you. I need to confess, but the apartment is empty. If I whisper into the vase F shouldn't have bought me and raise it to my ear before it escapes, my secret will sound like the ocean, whose ambivalence I don't deserve. I need the tiny woman on the plane who laid her head beside me, but she is either in Munich or the everywhere around it. So we have this idea that there's a secret. We sort of are introducing these themes of like bigness, the ocean, the world. We'll see if those continue through or if it's something that I need to come back later and edit out. The word count, like goal is between like 300 and 400 words, which is nice because you have to be super vicious with your editing. So this is just the start. We'll see what survives. Okay, so I did a bit more writing. We were feeling a little bit like lost in time and space-y. So I added a line fairly early on. I'm sitting on the kitchen counter across from the vase. So we've grounded ourselves. And then it also kind of means that the vase is taking a little more prominence in the story. I'm starting to see a little bit more where it's going. I'll read you what I wrote after that. I'm sitting on the kitchen counter across from the vase. I cannot call my mother because I betrayed her on the plane when I nearly laid my hand across the tiny woman's head and wrote over her curl pattern. If I can love two mothers, I'd rather love none, for 3 and 4 and all are the death of me. Somewhere that was not the airport, again that ridiculous almost anywhere, a little girl said, "I miss you," to her father as he hurried along the moving walkway against which I sat and waited. She hadn't said it to me, but I heard it, and I flung out an arm to find her voice already carried too far away, the moving walkway narrowing to a point at the end of the terminal. So yeah, this is still in the kind of writing stuff down and getting a feel for things. I'm already seeing some like themes and repetitions that I then like to pick from and then strengthen. Again, this kind of idea of the world either expanding in front of us with like the ocean from earlier, or narrowing to a point, those kind of oppositions. This idea of family and loved ones, also kind of the same, expanding to include all these people that we meet along the way, or narrowing to just strictly blood relatives or partners that you've chosen to live your life with. One more thing I want to mention is, and I feel like this is kind of a typical problem, especially with a story that's this short, is you can lose a lot of action. It can really easily just feel like someone sitting and just like saying some thoughts, which I'm not gonna like gatekeep what a story should be, but for me, I like to have a bit more action and progression. Still like a forward force through the story, which I think where the bass is coming in right now. So after that I added, so earlier we have, I'm sitting on the kitchen counter across from the vase, and then later I am seeing how the vase feels when I tilt it with one finger on its mouth. Right now it feels like the narrator, who is both me and not me, is going to break the vase, but that feels a little too obvious, so I think I'm going to try to think of something a little bit less obvious. Yeah, so there are words on the page, which is a good start. So yeah. So I just finished a workout, and I was thinking of this line, I want my world to stay small. And I guess right now I'm kind of thinking that maybe that's the confession that's mentioned at the start. It's good not to forget things that are introduced in your first sentence, which I still have as, I need to confess that the apartment is empty. Empty vase. I want my world to stay small. Then if we have that, it's, and again, if our narrator at the start, if the problem is the apartment is empty, then it kind of seems like she needs someone to confess to. And we have this list, like she can't confess to the vase, or the woman who sat by her. It's funny how quickly I become her. Or her mother, my mother, the mother, all mothers. Sorry, I'm getting text messages. It's confusing me. Okay, so clearly we're in the midst of it, so I'm gonna try to write a little bit more and see if we can find some clarity. Okay, so after I am seeing how the vase feels when I tilt it with one finger on its mouth. Hopefully that conjures like the right image. I might have to specify that. I kind of mean like this is the vase kind of going with it. Anyway, that line, and then I recognized Roman Polanski's name through my tears. He was a director I knew, but I also knew he was more. Yet what more felt endless. He was either a very good or a very bad man. Director was not such a large hole in I wanted to say like again everything or anything, or kind of like how I'd done before, but like almost anywhere. But then I was also thinking like a cloak or mask. I don't know. I might have gone off kilter with this last little bit. I was watching The Pianist on the plane, which is why he's come up, which yeah, I mean, if you don't know Roman Polanski, I don't know, should I get into this? Roman Polanski was, blah. Yeah, I might not end up with this section, but it does kind of seem like it's at the point of the story where we'd have that kind of shift or twist where you come to understand the narrator's reasoning or perspective, maybe, kind of where it all clicks into what the story is about, but I'm not sure if that's the right click, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'm not sure. I'm still not getting like a great grasp of the story yet, though I feel like maybe we're almost there. Yeah, we'll see. I'm wondering if the confession, I still haven't exactly figured out what the confession is, if that confession should be made to the mirror. I don't know how that works in with the face exactly. And I don't know. I did a lot of thinking in the shower. I think I rejected my mirror confession. It didn't really fit in with the themes that I'd established so far, and I feel like I've already had stories where people are looking at the mirror. Like everybody's always looking at the mirror. So let's do something different. I kind of wrote to the end, but in just like a very sketched out version. Like it'll have to be filled in. But let's see. So I have the last part about Roman Polanski. I filled in that last word that I was missing. Director was not such a large hole in man, meaning the idea of man, the whole of a person kind of thing. Still don't know if it's right, but I like the I like the whole part, as you'll see next. I am reaching beneath the sink for the hammer. I am turning the vase on its head. I wanted to play into the idea that we think the narrator is going to smash the vase. But then I am tapping into its base, a very small hole. I am gazing through the mouth at a narrowed world. The ocean inside it will be fine. My eye is plenty big to serve as a stopper when I'm done seeing. I need just the one. That is my confession. So, again, it's all still very rough and a little loosey-goosey. But if you remember the line that I was kind of mulling over, I want my world to stay small. I think that's sort of feeling like the theme or thesis of this short story. But I tend to not like to just come out and say things. I like to make them perhaps sometimes too ambiguous and convoluted. But I hope the more positive side of that is that it allows you to go on a journey through the story and fill in some of the spaces that I've intentionally left. Okay, I'm rambling. Yeah, I think this is something to work with so far. Yeah, it's going somewhere at least. Whether it's going in the right direction. What is the right direction anyway? So, okay. Hi, it's now the 15th of January. Last night I was thinking about the story while falling asleep, and I had an idea for the last line, which the way I had it yesterday was, I only need the one, that is my confession, which I realized kind of sounds like that Usher song, but I had the idea to change it to, I only need the one father. Sort of hinting it like the confession you would make to a priest, but also sort of because we have these like mothers who aren't mothers and children who aren't my children, the idea of sort of expanding that to then fathers. Then I didn't know if that was coming across clear enough. So then I changed it to, I only need the one, father, father, fathers, meaning father, the priest, father, biological father, and then the expanded fathers. Let me read you what else I wrote. We'll see if we're getting anywhere close. All right. I moved some things around and added some stuff, so it might sound different. I am sitting on the kitchen counter across from the vase. I need to confess that the apartment is empty. If I whisper into the vase, F shouldn't have bought me, and raise it to my ear before it escapes, my secret will sound like the ocean, whose ambivalence I don't deserve. I need the tiny woman on the plane who laid her head beside me, but she is either in Munich or the everywhere swallowing it. She ignored my tears when I cried for Adrian Brody, and didn't chastise me when I thought how the glowing green strip marking the seat numbers narrowed to a point like a horizon. I am seeing how the vase feels when I tilt it with one finger on its mouth. I cannot call my mother because I betrayed her on the plane when I nearly laid my hand across the tiny woman's head and wrote over her curl pattern. If I can love two mothers, I'd rather love none, for 3 and 4 and all are the death of me. Somewhere that was not the airport, again that ridiculous almost anywhere, a little girl said, "I miss you," to her father as he hurried along the moving walkway against which I sat and waited. She hadn't said it to me, but I heard it, and I flung out an arm to find her voice already carried too far away, the moving walkway narrowing to a point at the end of the terminal. I am reaching beneath the sink for the hammer. I recognized Roman Polanski's name through my tears. He was a director I knew, but I also knew he was more. Yet what more felt endless. He was either a very good man or a very bad man. Director was not such a large hole in man. I am turning the vase on its head. In the design store, I held up the vase and winked at F, only because Q was watching. I don't play pretend or false reality when we're alone, just like you don't scream unless someone is there to see the hammer hit your thumb. I am tapping into its base, a very small hole. I am tapping into the vase's base, a very small hole. I cannot love more because I cannot love all, but I cannot hate more because I cannot hate. I am gazing through the wide mouth of the vase at a narrowed world. The ocean inside it will be fine. My eye is plenty big to serve as a stopper. I close this eye so that I can see father, father, fathers. Okay, so I think there's still some work to be done. I'm pretty happy with like the progression of the vase part of it. I think that's right. Our narrator, not smashing it, but drilling a little hole. And hopefully you can see the imagery of looking through the wide part, through the narrow part, so that the world is just a pinpoint. And we see that earlier in the story with the like the green strip on the seat markers on the plane that like narrows to a point, and also the moving walkway which narrows to a point. So we have this repetition of things narrowing. But then I think there's some ideas that are still kind of thrown in there that need to be solidified, and then everything kind of clarified. So I think we have like the bulk of it that I'm pretty happy with, and the themes are starting to solidify a bit more, at least in my mind. So yeah, this is kind of the hard parts and the fun part, where you can kind of see the story that it's gonna be, but it needs some elbow grease, I guess. So yeah, I will continue working on it. is probably a good time to ask, depending on how you feel, might be a very important question, which is, what is this story about? And I've been thinking about it, and I think it's pretty apt for, I guess, the start of the year, especially for me, maybe for you too. I feel like I'm really excited about a lot of things that I hope happen this year, and change this year, but with all that excitement comes this, I guess, apprehension of what if it does happen the way you want it, and sort of, I don't know, I think the plane is really appropriate. It's like a transition, seeing the world literally spread out beneath you and wondering if you want it, whether you regret getting on that plane, and seeing that out there in the world is all these wonderful things, but also all these horrible things, and feeling your life expanding in a way it hasn't before, and not knowing if you did want it to expand, but now you're not sure. So I guess fear, of course. Yeah, I think it's sort of coming to realize how big the world is, and not knowing if you want your world to be big. Yeah. We'll see if that shows up in the story, but that's what I've been thinking about. I did some more writing and changed quite a bit, and got to that point where I'm kind of worried I just ruined it all and made a mess of it. Maybe I did, but I will probably wait until the morning to judge that. The dreaded read through. I'll read you what I have. I'm not a happy camper, I think. Okay. Alright. I need to confess that the apartment is empty. F won't be back for a week, and I wouldn't tell him anyway. I need the tiny woman on the plane who laid her head beside me on the empty seat and didn't mock the ridiculous tears I cried for Adrian Brody. But by now she is either in Munich or the everywhere else swallowing it, while I am sitting on my suitcase in the kitchen across from the new vase with a bow. I cannot call my mother to confess, because on the plane I twitched with tenderness to rest my hand across the tiny woman's head as I would hers. If I can memorize 2 curl patterns beneath my palm, I'd rather memorize none, because after 3 and 4 is all, and I like too much the way the glowing green strip marking the seat numbers above my head narrowed to a point. I am reaching beneath the sink for the hammer. I recognized Roman Polanski's name through my tears. He was a director, I knew, but I also knew he was more. Yet what more felt endless. Director was not such a large hole in man. In the design store, I held up the vase and winked at F only because Q was watching. I don't play pretend the life I thought I wanted when we're alone, just like I don't scream unless someone is there to see the hammer hit my thumb. I am turning the vase on its head. I am tapping a very small hole into the bottom. Somewhere that was anywhere but that section of the moving walkway against which I sat and waited to board the plane, a little girl said to her father on the phone, "I miss you." I flung out an arm to find her voice already carried too far away. The moving walkway narrowed to a point at the end of the terminal, and her missing me moved towards it. I am gazing through the wide mouth of the vase at a narrowed world. The ocean inside the vase will be fine. My eye is plenty big to serve as a stopper for the pinprick. Have mercy, I close this eye so that I can see. Father, father, fathers. So a couple problems. One, I feel like there's not much harmony between the vase part and the plane airport parts. 2, I removed the ocean part from the very beginning, so then the ocean at the end doesn't, it just comes out of nowhere. 3, I still think the point that I'm trying to make is muddied and not pushing through all the way. So yeah, this is the tough part where you're just a little lost. I was gonna say the only thing to do is to keep working at it, but I think there's also something to be said for not overworking things. Like the analogy that if you overwork like dough, it's not gonna make very nice bread or pasta. We'll see. I'm gonna have a little think about it. Try a little more. So I've had a chance to work on the story a bit more, and I actually think I am, other than like a few small edits, I think I'm pretty much done with it. And I don't think I sound maybe as happy as I should, because the kind of theme, or I don't want to say message, but it changed a bit as I was working on it. And I try to follow where the story leads. I try not to impose too much of like, this is what I want to say. I find that it doesn't usually create the best art. But the story became a bit more about, I guess, a lack of capacity in the narrator to to love all these people and to feel all this emotion, like genuine emotion for those around her, the world, I suppose. Which I think is true. I don't, each of us can't have enough love and empathy for 8 billion people, even though I think we want to think we can. And so it sort of became a story of the narrator seeing that her world is expanding, but feeling like she has to still block herself out from some of it. Even, the bad certainly, but some of the good too. Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see. I think that's the story. And yeah, I think that's the story. So I'm gonna let it sit tonight, and then read it with fresh eyes tomorrow. Do some probably small edits, and then I'll read it for you. Sorry, by the way, it is now the 16th. Hi, it's January 17th, and it is snowing outside, and I have a completed story. I'll be honest, this story fought me a bit more than others have before. It was that kind of story where I was working on what I thought were just little final edits and still didn't think I had it, until I was just working on the sort of second to last main paragraph, changed something, and then it just all fell into place, and it felt like, okay, now it's a story, and now it's the story that it was supposed to be, and that I was trying to get it to be. But for a lot of the time, and maybe you can tell, I was quite lost. I had all these pieces, but I didn't know what they were going to add up to. Which is fine, I think. I think it's okay to struggle with finding your way through something. It's sort of the price you pay when you don't have a set idea of what you want the story to be about and to say from the start. But I think allowing yourself to get lost is the only way to end up in places that you wouldn't have expected. So for that, I'm grateful for my stubborn, difficult little story. I'm going to end by reading the final story that I have, but I wanted to first thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Still really new to this, so still figuring a lot out, both with the filming and also with putting into words my writing process and what I'm thinking at the time and how I'm trying to work through the story. But I really enjoy when artists sort of pull back the curtain and let you look at what they're doing and what they're thinking. And it's obviously a bit easier with the visual arts, but hopefully you're still able to get a little bit of my process, and yeah, I only hope to get better at sort of sharing with you as I write these stories. This is my first vlog, but I do have other stories written, so if you'd like to read some more of them, Also, little stories like these, I'm at Sarah's Little Stories on Instagram. So thank you again for watching and enjoy the story. To the point. I need to confess that the apartment is empty. F won't be back for a week, and anyway, he would absolve me. I need that second to last living soul awake, that tall German on the plane, who watched me laugh as I wept over Adrian Brody. He would hear me and scornfully say, "Gut," but he is either in Munich or the elsewhere around it, and I am here, sitting on my suitcase in the kitchen, across from the new vase and its pretty little bow. I cannot call my mother to confess, for I betrayed her on the plane, when I called the tiny woman who laid her head beside me on the vacant seat between us, mother, and thought what a pretty thought it was, to wonder if her hair would feel the same beneath my palm. Should I write my confession to Roman Polanski? I wonder this as I am tilting the vase from side to side, a finger hooked in its mouth. I recognized his name through my tears as the credits for the pianist ran on and on. I knew there was more to him than director. Director is not such a large hole in man. Yet what more felt endless. It took 40,000 miles down to look up what I'd forgotten. Isn't he to blame for dragging evil so far away from good? Isn't he the reason I am reaching beneath the sink for the hammer? Dear Monsieur Polanski, you must forgive me. But no, it's Q's fault. Q, who watched in the design store as I held up the vase and winked at F. I don't contemplate unscalable heights when we're alone, just like I don't scream unless someone is there to see the hammer hit my thumb. I've turned the vase on its head. Really, it all started against that small section of moving walkway where I sat and waited to board my plane. A little girl's voice on the phone said, "I miss you." I turned to find her father carried off on the moving walkway, leaving her words tossed in my lap like litter from a blaring semi. And I was right, because I looked down to find those very words on my phone. I miss you. I'm gazing now into the wide mouth of the vase, and there's nothing but a speck of light where I tapped a small hole with the back of the hammer. I know I must close one eye. Have mercy, Father, Father, Fathers. It is the only way I can see.